Hello, winos, and cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome to episode 4 of season 3. As always, we are so happy to have you with us. Today, we are going to be talking about flipping the script. You're probably saying, what the heck does that mean? It means that typically, in our experience, and largely probably the fault of our former profession, lawyers,
Mm.
companies draft their policies for the 10% they suspect are going to abuse the policy instead of the 90% that are going to benefit, appreciate, and respect the policy. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that today and give you some ideas as to how you can flip that script and start making your policies a little bit more employee friendly, and also just changing how they're written so that they read that you actually trust and respect and value your employees, which, as you know, we are always saying is really important for retention, engagement, and all the good things. So, before we get there, though, we got to talk about the WINE. So, Trish, what are you drinking today?
Well, my wine is vodka.
Ah, that kind of
Ah,
day, huh?
it's that kind of day. So as you can probably tell, I am still up at my parents' house. My mom right now is 6 days post spinal surgery, and I am up here. And so today was just not a day that I could get away and pick a good bottle of wine. Knew that we had some vodka and thought, well, I think it's a vodka with HR day. So that's where we are.
What kind of vodka?
This will make you laugh. It is the Costco vodka.
All right. Hey,
You know I love
Cos
my Costco.
yeah, they make good stuff.
They do. They do. This isn't the French one. So it's the American Costco versus, right? So it's not as good as the other one, but we can't all be have like goose running around or whatever. So
Yeah,
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 pretty stoked
yeah.
about it. My
Good,
brother and
good.
I, this has been our every night at the end of a successful day helping our parents. This has been our little treat to ourselves. So
Yeah.
not every day, I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean.
Eh, even if it is, whatever, whatever gets you through.
Exactly.
Best wishes to
Exactly.
your mom
Thank
on her
you.
recovery, and also to your dad because he's had a little couple bumps in the road recently as well. So
Thank you.
we're
I
sending well
appreciate that.
wishes to both of your parents.
Thank
Um,
you.
So I am drinking an Italian white. It
Woo!
is called,
Who's shocked? Everybody out there in the
I
audience,
know,
raise your hand.
I know, shocking. It is Alcantara. How fun does that sound? So that's the winery, and it's a Nuterna. And it is a Sicilian white from southern Italy from 2022. And this was another one that was recommended to me by Vino type wine store, which is in Chesterland, Ohio, and I hope to do an episode from there this season. But it's the cutest little wine shop. They have a bunch of old typewriters, so that's the type of Vino type, and then they have a lot of really
Right.
interesting wines. And I, of course, told one of the sommeliers that I liked Italian wines all around, and so he picked out some really interesting whites for me. So this one is it smells very light and almost astringent.
Oh,
And it's definitely minerally, and that was the theme we were going with these wines the last time that I
love
got a
it.
bunch. And it's very smooth, very nice for summer. So it's got some fruit hints like green apple, a little bit of lemon, uh, and then that mineral sort of finish. So far, I'm enjoying it quite a lot, and the label's very cool, very
Oh, I love
artistic,
that.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, nice.
I'll give you my final verdict, but again, usually by the end of the show, I'm in love with all of them. So Okay, so before we get to the WHINE, we have a couple of announcements. We have another whole damn bottle subscriber, Ami Patel. So thank you,
Woo!
Ami. She
Thanks,
already has
Emmy.
her, yeah, she already has her glass because she's a good friend of mine and signed up while she was with me. So I just handed it over to her. So hand
That worked out
delivery.
well.
If you're in Ohio, that could be you too. And then I wanted to show you a couple more pieces of merch. We're going to be rolling it out in the next week or so, but here's a t-shirt. So I have to say, I am not a t-shirt person. I don't love them in general, but this is very, very soft. So it's very nice. And it's unisex fit, but I got a large and it's not like super, super baggy or big. So really like that. We have a couple canvas bags. So here's the first one with one version of our logo. How cute is that?
Love
And
it.
then we have version number two, which is an even bigger bag. So, this one could carry multiple bottles of wine.
Love it. Love it.
And then, of course, we have other things, and we just keep adding stuff because we just love merch. And we're even going to have some special items for Pride Month. So we're in
Oh,
the works. We're
awesome. I forgot about
designing
that.
those right now. So again, we're going to be releasing it soon. We'll put the link out there. Follow us on Patreon, and you'll get first dibs. So, exciting stuff. Exciting
Oh,
stuff. Okay, so the WHINE. As I mentioned, our what we're going to be talking about is how most companies craft their policies through the lens of the people who are going to abuse those policies. And we want to challenge you to think about it a little bit differently because a lot of times that can send the wrong message that you don't trust your employees or you don't value what they do outside of work, which I think we need to start doing more. Trisha and I were talking about this before the episode started, and we were talking about how, a lot of policies that employers create, like PTO, flex time, remote work is a little bit newer, but still it's been around for a while. Attendance policies, they are the same as they were 25 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Like they really haven't changed much. It's like we had
no.
a draft of it and we just kept using it.
Oh,
and,
that's exactly right.
and they haven't really necessarily changed with the times. Now, everything had to change during COVID, but a lot of companies are trying to revert back to how things were before COVID. And that is being met with, not surprisingly, resistance
No,
and consternation and frustration. So that's all the
people
things we're going to talk
quitting.
about. Yes, people quitting. So that's all the things we're going to talk about. Trish, I'm going to turn it over to you, but why don't you start with saying, giving an idea of some of the kinds of policies we're talking about?
Well, I think Julie just kind of covered the ones that we really, really want to focus on, those really strict PTO policies. Or maybe you don't even call it PTO, right? Maybe you say, oh no, you have to use this for sick time, this for vacation time, and then you have them all relegated out and you get individual hours versus saying, hey, this is your time, use it as you will. So that's the first one. Flex time or alternative scheduling. I'm a huge, huge fan of flex time. I love that ability to be able to say, okay, sure, you have to leave a little early today. Just come in and work a little bit longer tomorrow. Or when an employee has a doctor's appointment or something with their kids, something with another family member, that they can just say, oh, okay, well, I can work a little later here and come in earlier there to make things work. So we'll talk about that. Back to the office policies. This goes to this whole, hey, everybody's quitting, not everybody. But there is a lot of pushback, and I understand some of the reasons for wanting people to return to work. But what I think a lot of companies are forgetting is the value that this has provided, that your employees have provided, and to all of a sudden rip that away from them without a real true reason. And that's the thing. Most people, most companies are not providing real reasons for doing that. So what is your why? If this is something that you're trying to do, what is your why? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then concurrent use of FMLA and PTO, one of my favorites.
Yeah. So all important things, all good things. And now, of course, we have to start with a few stats. So, this is Trisha's favorite time of the episode, as we all know.
Really is.
Uh, but I'm going to steal her thunder and start with a couple myself. And if you see me looking off to the side, it's because I can't memorize all of these. So
Me either.
I got my notes on the screen. So I apologize for that if you're actually watching us and not just listening to us. If you see us looking sideways, that's why. We're going to start with PTO and just kind of where it's at. So the average amount of days that companies are giving in the US is between 11 and 20, which is not a lot if you think
No,
about it. 20
no.
is technically 4 weeks, but that's usually not given until people have been with a company for at least 5 years, sometimes even longer. So even if you go with the 11, which by the way is weird, but again, it's an average.
It's so
So
weird.
yeah. But so let's call it 10 days. That's 2 weeks. If you get sick, and miss 2 or 3 days, now you're down to seven. And that, that's not a ton of time, especially if you have to reserve a couple of days for school functions, doctor's appointments. Heck, you need a personal mental health day, whatever. It really doesn't give you a lot of flexibility. And the other thing is we are so far behind other countries when it
Oh,
comes
it's
to this.
ridiculous.
Yes, so far behind. I mean, we're like literally the only developed country that doesn't have any federally mandated paid leave.
Yeah,
So that's nuts. But most European countries offer at least 20 days of PTO from the get-go.
yeah.
That's not, you don't have to earn it over 5 years. So those are the two that I wanted to start with. I'm going to turn it back over to Trish for some of her favorite PTO stats,
Well, I
or
have,
not favorite.
yeah, right. They're my not favorite favorites. I actually, and I love that you started with the ones about the difference between us and European countries, because I think that that's really a really great way to look at things. They are our brothers and sisters in arms, right? When we do any sort of stats, when we do any sort of reviews, they're going to be between us and a lot of the European countries. And so I think number one, starting there. Number two, I have a cousin who is currently living in Germany. Her husband works for the federal government. She is working for the government, but like also for someplace in Europe. So she gets both. She gets all
uh,
the American holidays and she gets the European holidays. I mean, you talk about awesome. This is why I think so many people are running to those European countries these days to work.
well, they
But
also have like better protections because I was working with somebody who was employed in Germany through a German company. And there was something, don't quote me on this because I'm obviously not going to get it exactly right, but there's something like if they decide to separate employment, they still have to pay you for 6 months or something. Like there's a
wow.
huge like
Wow.
your employment is much more protected.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that doesn't offer them the flexibility that it offers U.S. companies. So, of course, there's advantages and disadvantages. But from an employee's perspective, there's a lot more protections.
Yes, yes. And that's the first time I had ever heard of unlimited PTO too. I have a couple of people that work in the tech industry, and that was the first time they it was again a German company, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we have unlimited PTO," and I was like, "Excuse me, what?" But I think that again, we're not digressing. It sounds like we are, but it's important to understand that, okay, here we go with the stats. 62% of people think having paid time off is extremely important. 88% of full-time employees had access to paid vacation. This was last year in 2024. 46% of workers don't actually use all of their PTO. Now, understand, so you're like, well, why would you want us to give them more if less than half are actually using it? And it's that whole mindset thing. People are actually afraid of using their PTO because they think it's going to be held against them. And so this is something where we as companies really need to step up. I think that's one of the reasons why Jules and I are focusing on this idea of what they do in Europe versus what we do here. Look, we do a lot of great things that they don't do. I get that. We're not saying anything like that, but it's good to try to think of it in a more well-rounded scenario. So like pick from here, pick from there, and really explain to your employees the why behind it. Here's the other thing that happens here in the US. 68%. Can we just pause there for a second? 68% of employees still work while they're on vacation. How does this help with your work-life balance? How does this allow you to reset? How does this allow you to appreciate anything about your life if you're still working? And the truth is, I bet if you sat around and talked to your counterparts right now, most of them would say, and I bet all of you listening are going, well, that's just normal. But why? Why is it normal? Is my question to you. So, 52% of US workers worry about work while they're on vacation, or they worry about getting in trouble for using their vacation, even though it's a benefit. 23.5% of US workers actually don't receive compensation for unused PTO. There are a bunch of companies that have been offering it that I hear are starting to roll that back. Within the last couple of years, people are starting to roll that back, which is really, really upsetting to hear. Let's talk about average vacation times real quick for civilian and private industry. Julie already said we're talking about 11 days is the average. So I wanted to repeat that one more time after we just talked about how little people are actually taking it. And now let's go back and think about that 11 days. Um, so yeah, it's so depressing, these numbers to me.
Yeah, and as you said, Trish, like we're not trying to bash American companies by any stretch, but we are challenging employers to start thinking about the way that they frame their policies, about the way that they frame the benefits that they offer, because the workforce is changing. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
again, COVID changed us all, and a lot of people got used to having more flexibility, and it's really hard to yank that away from people. And quite frankly, again, a lot of our policies and benefit programs are drafted almost in a punitive sense.
oh
Like
totally.
they are drafted for the people that we expect are going to
Yep.
abuse them. And that does not send a message that you trust your employees or that you trust them to use their time wisely. And I think that that's part of what we're trying to get at. Like, from if you step out of the employer shoes and you think just you as a person, I'm sure all of you have encountered this where you're like, oh my gosh, I've got, all this stuff going on outside of work. I just need an hour here or an hour there. But if I have to put in for PTO for all of it, that starts to eat up really quickly. And then all of a sudden you're left with no time. Or you've had to use all your PTO for crappy stuff. Like I have a client right now where they're really working with this employee, but they have an employee who's going through some custody issues, and so this person has had to use a ton of PTO to go to court. Like, how much does that suck?
That
Right, like,
totally stinks.
right, like you don't get any time off to actually just do fun things, like to rejuvenate, to re-energize, to come back in a better headspace. Like you're spending it all in the courthouse. Ugh.
Ugh.
And I think we don't think about that enough as employers that
Right.
there are easy ways to make the workplace more favorable and more beneficial to employees that don't cost employers a lot.
Mm,
And again, as long as you are addressing abuse, shouldn't be a problem.
right.
But a lot of times, as we've talked about in other episodes, and as we're going to talk about more here, managers and leadership will go to such great lengths to not have to have a difficult conversation that they will create these policies that, first of all, usually end up confusing everybody or
Mm.
pissing off half your workforce, and don't actually accomplish what you were setting out to do, because the people who are going to abuse the policies or the benefits are always going to abuse the policies or benefits. So it doesn't matter
Always.
how strict you write a policy, they're still going to be trying to find a way around it. So it's a losing scenario. So, like, again, flip it and let's write it for the 90% who are going to actually abide by it, and respect you more for respecting them enough to trust them.
Well, and I think, Julie, the point that you made earlier kind of goes back to the point you just made, which is these were written 20, 30, 40, 50 years
Yeah.
ago. Let's talk about the employees now. We're talking, and by the way, to our millennials and our Gen Zers, kudos to you all.
Yeah.
I know sometimes you guys get a bad rap, but I am
Yeah.
so impressed. It is it is because of you that this drive for work-life balance has really kind of come to the forefront, and y'all are out there saying we're not going to do this. We don't, we don't want to live like this. We want to work, we want to have a life, because hey, as far as we know, as I like to say, we only know that we get one go round on this beautiful
Hmm.
rock of ours. And so why not reward them and make them want to come to work by respecting them and creating those policies? And again, Julie really hit the nail on the head. These policies are written because people don't want to have the difficult conversations.
Yep.
That's what they're written for.
Yep. And one other thing I want to bring up about the PTO policies, and then we'll move on to flex time. But there is also a lot of inequity over who has access to PTO, particularly those higher number of days. So all of the stats that we were using come from an article from Clockify, which is a timekeeping software program that we actually use. It's quite nice, not very expensive. I'm not getting anything for saying that. I just like to share resources that make sense. But anyway, that's where they come from. And of course, we will post the link in the show notes so you can look at it for yourself. But a couple other points that article makes is that higher earning workers have more access to PTO and get more PTO days than lower earning workers. So, again, not surprising, but not fair. And bigger companies are often able to offer more PTO. So, there's some inequity there as well. And that's one of the other things I want to say before I forget. These Focusing on these types of policies and making them more flexible and directing them at that 90% can be a really great marketing and attraction tool for small to mid-sized companies who can't compete with those bigger companies in terms of salary or comp or traditional benefits. So if you have a workplace where you can offer flexible schedules, or unlimited PTO, which we'll talk more about later, or just alternative scheduling, whatever it might be, if you can offer those sorts of things, there's a lot of people out there, to Trisha's point, particularly the millennials and the Gen Z, who are willing to not make as much money to have that sort of flexibility in their life, to be able to pursue other interests, whether that's for money or not. So this can be a really great attraction and retention tool
Yep.
if you do it right.
Well, and I think the other thing that you mentioned that I want to double down on really, really quick is about the higher earning workers getting more PTO. those people typically are going to be your employees who have more flexibility anyway, because
Yep.
those are going to typically be your exempt employees, right?
Hmm.
And so,
Yep.
because they're exempt, they do have a little more flexibility. So, recognizing that and creating your policies to allow for that flexibility for some of your, I don't want to, non-higher earning workers, I guess is the way I'll say it. Think about like what an attraction tool that would be, because when you're out there and you're trying to compete with other companies, you're not just competing with someone in your same industry. If you're trying to attract some of these lower income type of jobs, you're competing with maybe five, six, seven other industries, right?
Hmm.
And so this could be something that really makes the difference and pushes people over the edge in a good way towards your company versus one of your competitors or a similar job in a different field.
Yeah, and I want to start talking a little bit about flex time, but I also want to say that we understand that there are certain jobs that make some of these things more difficult. Like we're about to start talking about flex time. There are people who work, on factory lines or have sort of a much more regimented schedule that are going to make flex time a little bit more challenging. But it doesn't mean it's impossible because there are ways that you can allow people to have some flexibility throughout their day or week where if they do need to leave for a couple of hours, they could make that up sometime else during the week as long as they can find coverage or you can find coverage as the manager or whatever the case may be. So even if it seems like it's impossible, I would encourage you to think about whether that is the case and maybe even reach out to your team to ask them for ideas about how you could implement such a thing. But I'm working with a team right now where, their hours are pretty set. Um, but and they're all administrative people. And I said to them, hey, listen, the way that I like to operate is if you have something in your life where you need 2 hours or less to go run out and do something. And I really don't care what it is. You don't have to tell me. It's none of my business. You don't have to justify it to me. If that is the only time you can go get your hair done, go get your hair done. If you need to go to the gym and get a workout in because you're stressed out to the hilt, go ahead. I don't care. Again, like there's not a reason that's better than another from the standpoint of it's your life and your business. But I tell them if it's 2 hours or less, make it up sometime during that same week. And you don't even have to tell me about it. Just make sure you check in with the team and you're not leaving anybody in a lurch. And as long as those two things are satisfied, I do not care
I
because I
love it.
trust you as adults to manage your own shit.
Yeah. And it's that 10% that abuse it that we are going to write the policies for, and then there's going to be
Exactly.
consequences.
I'm going to ruin it for everybody,
Yep.
even though all we need to do is talk to that one person and be like, you're totally taking advantage of this. I'm
And
calling you out on it. You don't get to do it anymore. Like, but why do we punish everybody?
right. And that's, I think people don't realize that you absolutely can say, you don't get to do this anymore. If
Yep.
you're not in good standing with the company, if your performance hasn't been in a good place over this last quarter or last 6 months, whatever it is, you absolutely have the ability to say, you know what, we're going to walk that back for you. As soon as you prove that you are capable of doing this, we'll roll it right back out. There's no
Yep.
reason to not do that.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's a super important point. We're not saying there aren't consequences
Oh no,
for
there are
for not
consequences.
following these. And you could yank it back from a whole department if a whole department's in on it and abusing it left and right. You can yank it back from all of them,
Yep.
and just say, "Hey, you abused the privilege, so until you can show us that we can trust you again, you don't get to do it." So we're encouraging you all to think about if you are directing your policies and benefit programs at that 10%. Again, we want you to think about flipping it And some of it's just in how you write it, but directing it towards that 90% who, again, are really going to appreciate having that extra flexibility, even if it is something as simple as being able to adjust their schedule week by week to allow for those life events that are perhaps foreseen, perhaps unforeseen, but just giving them that extra little bit of control over their outside work life where they don't feel like, oh my God, I've got to get PTO approved. I've got it like it's too much of a hassle. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to miss my son's graduation or I'm going to like skip this doctor's appointment. Like, we don't want our employees to be doing that because that makes them more likely to get sick, to be disengaged, to quit, to start looking for to silently quit, or what was that called? Quietly quit.
Quiet
You
quitting.
know,
Yep.
quietly quitting. It encourages them to do all of those things and eventually leave us. So the more that we can show them, we trust you to be an adult. We're going to stop treating you like a child and we're going to give you some flexibility. That can only help.
Jules, as we were talking too, I started thinking about our listeners out there that do have more of the shift work, and they're like, yeah, we can't do this. There's nothing that we can do. But you know me, always thinking outside the box. Why couldn't, just throwing this out there for people, they have someone from the next shift maybe come in 2 hours early for them, and
Mhm.
then they can stay 2 hours late on another day. Now, as long as you're not
Mhm.
in like California or someplace where it's like, oh, after 8 hours, you're
Right.
paying overtime. Okay, okay, I get that. So it really think, I guess is what I'm saying. I encourage everyone out there, don't just be like, oh, we're shift work. This isn't going to work for us. Really stop and think, okay, no, if someone was here and they said to me, they put my feet to the fire, as they say, what kind of a solution could I come up with?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a brilliant point.
Oh, well,
Yeah, and on that note, I want to read something from, again, we'll put the link in the show notes, but this is from Harvard Business Review, which I know we quote a lot, but they've got some great
we love it.
articles. We love it. So this one is from an article about the radical promise of truly flexible work. And these two paragraphs stuck out at me. So they said, ironically, while widespread flexibility was vital for knowledge work organizations to not only survive, but innovate and financially thrive during the height of the pandemic, many businesses still balk at permanently adopting it. Instead, they've resorted to old formulas and one size
Ugh,
fits all policies that discount individual variability. One person is slacking off, all must be micromanaged. Exactly what we're talking about. Thank you, Harvard.
uh-huh.
Without regard for differences in self leadership or the impact on productivity and morale. Some people are energized by in person work. Those who are drained by it must just fall in line and show up. Comprehensive flexibility cannot be a temporary fix or a privilege bestowed on a select few. Rather, it must be ingrained in organizational culture, a must for an inclusive and productive workplace. Accomplishing this requires two types of alignment. And we'll talk a little bit more about these. But the what is aligning what people do with their strengths. So again, we tend to treat everybody uniformly. We don't have to. We can play to their strengths. So when people do what they're best at, they're more creative and more innovative. An analysis of multiple studies indicates that job satisfaction, work engagement, well being, and work performance are all correlated to working with one's strengths because that's where you feel most in your comfort zone, right?
For sure.
And then, so that's the what. The how is aligning how people work, including where and at what hours, with people's lives, health needs, and energy. Data from around the world, so again, not just US, indicates that flexible work benefits work life balance, productivity, and organizational outcomes. It's a true win win. They give an example of an airline. In the middle of the last century, the United States Air Force had a problem with frequent crashes. There were 17 accidents on one day alone. After ruling out pilot error, poor training, and mechanical failure, investigators found that cockpits were the cause. Designed in 1920, they were constricting and uncomfortable for the 1950s pilots. The redesign project started by measuring more than 4,000 pilots on 10 relevant dimensions, such as torso length, arm and leg length, and neck and chest circumference, and calculating averages for every dimension. But none of the pilots were perfectly average. And so designing the cockpit around those numbers meant designing for no one. Then the Air Force did something manufacturers had thought impossible. It made everything adjustable, from seats to foot pedals to helmet straps. These solutions were both cheap and easy to implement, and the results were remarkable. Pilot performance soared. Pilot diversity and the availability of talent increased because more body sizes, including female ones, could be accommodated. Of course, adjustable seats ultimately became standard, not just in cockpits, but in cars as well. So there's an example where somebody was, a company or an organization was faced with a problem, thought there wasn't a viable solution, and then figured out how to make it work, and it turned out for the better. So this is
For
a great
everyone,
example
not
for
just for them.
everyone. Exactly, exactly. So I wanted to share that example because I thought it was, first of all, I didn't know. So I thought it was really interesting. And second, I think it's a really good lesson in sometimes we're faced with situations we think are impossible, but it just forces us to find new possibilities. Mic
Wow.
drop.
I was just about to say that's our mic drop moment. You beat me to it, darn it.
All right, Trish. So take it from there wherever you want to go.
Well, we've already talked a little bit about return to office, but I think I'm gonna kind of wait on that one and go a different direction, and then we'll come back and just kind of hit that as our exit. I want to talk about concurrent use of FMLA and PTO. Anyone who's taken my class knows that this is something I talk about a lot when we get to the FMLA section. As a reminder for our non-HR listeners, FMLA does provide your eligible employees up to 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave for qualifying reasons. Now, we're not going to get into all of the qualifying reasons, but just understand it's your own physical health or well-being, that of a family member, or like adoption or birth or of a child, or of course, adoption through the foster care system or becoming a foster care parent. Those are just kind of the generalities of it. Employers, by the way, do have the option to require employees to use their PTO. That's why I wanted to kind of talk about this. So before we get to that, though, please understand that that is from the federal perspective. From the state perspective, your state and local laws actually could provide additional protections, and they also may provide more qualifying events. Those kind of additional protections, what we're really speaking of is paid leave. So if you are in a state where there is paid leave, please know that we're going to be addressing that for a second as well. But generally, your FMLA is unpaid, and your employees can choose to use their PTO or sick leave or whatever it is for any portion of their leave. As I already mentioned, you as an employer also then, or for those of you who are not an employer, just wondering why your employer does this, your employer does have that option to require you to use your PTO or sick time concurrently with your FMLA. Now, I have to stop before I get into why I'm even talking about this and just give a little reminder to our HR folks. Um, Back in January of this year, the Department of Labor did clarify. They sent out an opinion letter and they did clarify that employers can not require employees to use their PTO or sick or any of those if those employees are receiving paid benefits from state or local programs. We will have a link, by the way, in the show notes to that opinion letter, so you can try to understand ex how and if this impacts you. Okay, employers, what does this mean? If you have an employee who does receive partial pay, then under a state program or a local program, then you cannot force them to use any sort of PTO or sick time, etc. But if they only receive a partial payment, you and the employee together can agree to supplement the benefits that they're already going to receive. So this is kind of a little bit of a change, a little bit of a clarification. So just wanted to make sure everybody is aware of that. Now, last thing, once your employee does exhaust those state or local benefits, at that point, you as the employer can actually make them use their PTO for that, again, the now unpaid portion of the leave. So I wanted to start there because I think that's an important clarification. It's something that they really helped us with early in January. Um, but now let's talk about the why. Why am I even talking about this? When I first started hearing about, and Julie will know this because she and I talk about it all the time, I first talked about being required to use FMLA and PTO. I thought it was the most horrible thing in the world. I thought it was so offensive. I couldn't believe that they would steal somebody's PTO. Well, guess what? That's because it was the way it was presented to me. What I never realized is that this is actually a benefit for your employees. Your employees can use both, again, their FMLA and their PTO without fear of losing their job or losing any of their benefits to which they are entitled. So it gives your employees peace of mind knowing that they can do this. It also allows them better, here we go again with our work-life balance, but it allows them better work-life balance. And what does that do? We've already said it a couple of times, but let's focus more on it can improve mental health and also job satisfaction. The why behind that is because it demonstrates your commitment as the employer to their well being. Hey, we want you to do this, and here is the reason why. By the way, this also comes from a wonderful article. It's a few years older, but it's from Connect Pay USA, and we will have a link to that as well. Now, we have to talk about the downside because Julie and I are about covering the ups and downs in every way. There is a downside of requiring your employees to use their FMLA and PTO concurrently. If you force your employees to use all of their PTO concurrently with their FMLA, what happens if they get sick? What happens if their child gets sick? You know, what if it's a newborn mom, a newborn situation, right? The mom takes the time or the dad takes the time to bond with the child, and then the child is sick. And so now what? They have no FMLA, they have no vacation. You talk about scared. They're already scared because their child is sick, or their spouse is sick, or their family member is sick. Well, now they're worried about losing their job on top of everything else. So that is one of the downsides of requiring them to use everything together. But if you have a reserve point, maybe a 20-hour, maybe at 40 hours. So here's how it sounds. We will require you to use your PTO and FMLA concurrently up to 40 hours or until you have a remaining of 20 hours. Now, I feel like this is exceptionally important if you're a company who gives your PTO all at the beginning of the year. So January 1, boom, someone has their PTO. They're not going to have that opportunity to earn it again. And so for them, once it's gone until January 1. So by having this reserve line, you do still allow them. And again, we were talking about demonstrating your commitment to their well-being. That's what this is going to do. It's going to say, look, we recognize that you're still going to need that time. You still may need some vacation time. So that's one of my favorite ways of doing it. What do you think, Jules?
I agree with you. And I had a similar journey with that policy because labor and employment attorney, that is what we always told people.
Yes.
Make sure that you make them take their PTO concurrent with their FMLA, as long as there aren't any laws prohibiting that. Because again, otherwise people are going to abuse it. And they're going to use their 12 weeks of FMLA and then they're going to come back and they're going to say, I'm taking 4 weeks of vacation and you
Yep.
can't do anything about it. Well, you can, first of all, because
Right.
you can write your policy in such a way that that is not possible. But more so, I think with age comes wisdom and a different perspective, right? And, when I was younger and didn't really need a whole lot of PTO or didn't need time off or anything like that, it was like no big deal. But now, having been through several health crises,
Yeah.
and I mean, we don't have FMLA. Monarch's not that big. We don't have FMLA, and I work for myself, so I can give myself time off. So, I'm in a privileged position, of course. But how much would it suck if you had a medical emergency and had to use up all your PTO to either take care of yourself and recover or take care of a parent or a child or a spouse? And then, like, you have no time to recover from that. For any of you out there who have had to take care of somebody else, who have had to be a caregiver, as Trisha can attest, right now, and I'm not like we love our parents, but it is
Oh, tremendous.
exhausting. It's
Yeah.
exhausting. And so you are already on your last thread of energy, of
Patience.
frustration, patience, thank you, of patience. You're burned out. And so to not have any time left in the bank, to
Yeah.
have no option to take a mental health day, to just
Ugh.
go cry in the shower because you just need to. Like that
Yeah.
is to to a lot of people that is untenable. And yet employers are still forcing that on people. And that is what we're trying to challenge you to see. It is amazing how much my perspective has changed, just having to deal with life challenges that in my 50s that I did not have to deal with in my 20s or 30s or even early 40s.
Right.
Um, that now you're like, oh my God. And especially, I'm just putting a plug in here for our employees who have been with us for a long time, who are probably in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, and maybe beyond. They have probably been with you for a really long time and they have given you their all for years and years and years. And now they just need a little bit back. They need a little bit more flexibility. They need a
Right.
little bit more compassion. They need a little bit more trust. And if they aren't getting it, I'm sorry, but here's where Brenna's going to have to bleep some stuff out. But if I listened to somebody one time who said, especially for women, in your 40s, you learn you no longer give a, in your 50s, you no longer give a flying. And it is 100% accurate. And it is, in many cases, worth walking away from a job for. And actually, I have a stat on this. So hold please while I find it because I've been scrolling up and down on my little list here. But about this is from a CNBC article, which again, we'll put the link in the show notes, but about half of workers say they would rather quit than have to return to the office full time. And that's according to a Pew Research Center poll. So legit, like
Yeah.
half, 50% of your people would rather quit than have to come back to the office full time because they've gotten used to that flexibility. They've gotten used to being able to manage their life and their work in a way that flows for them. And to now have
Yeah.
to stop, you know, I have a friend going through this right now. Husband has been called back into the office full time. Well, husband was the one taking the kid to daycare. Or, like
Yeah.
now they're like, what are we going to do? Like, you can't just disrupt people's lives and expect them to
Especially
be
when you
like
hired them.
under a,
Especially when you
yes,
hired them under
for a
remote
remote
work.
position and just expect
Hmm.
them to be like, okay, whatever you say, sir. We don't live in that world anymore, you
No,
know?
no.
So, um, really think about it. Like, workers, there's another stat from this Pew Research poll. Workers value hybrid work similarly to an 8% raise.
Because for a lot of them, it is an 8% raise. They don't have that commute time. They have
Yep,
a little more flexibility. There isn't parking involved if you have an area where it makes total sense to me. The gas, yeah,
yep,
I
yep,
totally get that. And this
yep,
is what we go back to with all of these go to what I was just saying about like the FMLA. The whole reason for having this is that it demonstrates the employer's commitment to the employee's well-being.
yep,
That's what these are supposed to do. And if you're not writing your policies with that kind of thought in mind, you're missing the boat and your employees will jump ship.
yep.
Look at what I
Well,
did there.
yes, well done. Um,
Thank you.
and again, I want to step back for a moment and sort of talk about what it would look like. So let's say you currently have a policy that says you get 10 days of PTO. It's not available for your first 90 days because you're brand new and we don't trust you. And so it probably doesn't say it in those exact terms, but it says, you got to earn your PTO. You get 10 days the first year. After 5 years, you get 15 days, blah, 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 whatever it says, right? Or actually, let's use flex time because that's easier. So let's say your policy is you got to be here for working hours, which is 8:30 to 5 every day, no exceptions. If you need an alternative schedule, you have to get it approved by ownership, and it will only be approved in the most sensitive of situations or something like that. So imagine that's how the policy reads. So an employee reading that is thinking, all right, crap, I got to be here from 8:30 to 5 every day. I don't really have a choice. Imagine if that policy was written to say, we trust our employees. We trust you to get the work done within 40 hours within a week. If you need to flex your schedule to attend a life event that is under 2 hours, we trust you to do that and not have to tell us about it. How different does that feel? You can
I
still
love
have
that.
the disclaimers at the end that say, if you abuse this policy, it can be taken away from you. You can still have all of that kind of language so that you can do something if somebody does abuse the policy, but feel how differently that reads,
Hmm.
right? We
So
trust
different.
you. We trust you to manage your work and your life, and we trust you to get the job done. I mean, it's so different. It's such a different message. So, we're coming into our closing. And so, one of the things that I want to stress to you is that when you are looking at your policies, in addition to looking at whether you have written them for the 10% or the 90%, you need your policies to align with your core values. So if one of your core values is trust and respect, so two of your core values, but you have these super strict policies that don't allow anybody any wiggle room, you do not trust or respect your employees. So you really need to think about that. And if you have integrity as one of your core values, but you don't trust your employees to act with integrity, there's a huge disconnect there. So
There's
you
a
got to think
problem.
about that too, right? That's a problem. So align your core values with your policies and your benefit programs and make sure that you are writing them in a way that actually shows and embodies those core values.
I love it. And I will piggyback off of Jules and I'll say, okay, here are the questions you want to ask yourself. Is it actually necessary? When you're developing a policy, really and truly, is it necessary to create a policy for this? Or, like we said earlier, are you just afraid to have a conversation? Do you have a couple of people that have just stretched you to your absolute limit and you don't have the courage to deal with them? If that is the case, then no, you don't need to write a policy. You need to pull up the bootstraps, have a conversation. Look, they're called difficult conversations for a reason. We have a great class on that in our Monarch University. So, or you can talk to Julie and I. We can tell you a little more about that. But definitely think about, okay, is this for one or two people, or is this for the masses? Number two,
Trish,
yes.
can I interject for just a quick second?
Well,
Because
of
I think
course.
because I think that's such an important point, and I know we've made this point on other episodes, but a lot of employers think that they have to have a policy for absolutely every contingency, and you don't. And so your core values are a policy. So again, if you write the rest of your policies for the 90%, and you have
Mhm.
that 10% who is abusing those policies, you can use your core values. You can fire someone for not having integrity or for not respecting their colleagues
Okay.
because they've been taking a bunch of days off in a row or not calling in or not checking with their teammates or whatever the case may be. You can use those core values as a policy. You don't have to have a written policy for every single situation that might ever occur.
Julie, I totally steal that from you. Ever since you and I had that conversation, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was, I totally steal it for every single class. I tell them, as long as you're actually living your policies, you can use
Yep.
them. You can say, hey, you don't need this. Goodbye.
Yep.
Like it's that simple. Yep, I love it.
Off you
I love
go.
ta-ta.
So
All right,
sorry to
yeah,
interrupt. Back to you. Back to you,
no, I
Trish.
think that was a wonderful little thing. Let's go to the why though, because again, we all know I love the why. I'm the stat girl and the why girl. Um, Oftentimes our employees don't understand the why a policy exists. I can think of a training that I did with Monarch that I was doing for one of our clients, and someone interrupted the training was, oh, that's why HR does that. We thought they were just being a bunch of,
Bleepity
and I was
beep
like,
beep.
it was like a kick in the gut. And I do, I share this with all my classes too, but it was such a kick in the gut, but it was also a great reminder to me that we are so used to this, right? It's our job. We're always dealing with the laws, we're always dealing with the policies. We understand the why. And a lot of times our employees and even our managers don't understand the why. Like, it's the law might be a great why. But it helps it feel less like a punishment to your employees if they understand it's not us trying to make their lives harder or that we're not trying to micromanage managers out there. So explain to them the why if it is a necessary policy. And then the last thing I will say, kind of going along with what Julie said, don't write yourself into a corner. Use language that allows you to actually make determinations on a case by case basis. You don't want to set some sort of a precedent that you can't walk back. And you certainly don't want to get yourself in a situation where you want to say yes to someone but you're like, well, we can't say yes. We never say yes. Like that's not who you want to be as a company. You really want to talk to people and think about them as individuals. Julie is famous for saying you can treat people differently as long as you're treating them with it well within the law. And so know that you can do things for people. You can allow them this grace, if you will. So, whether you are revamping or creating new policies, remember what we said, even going back to today, but going back to our last episode as well. You want to create an environment where leaders and employees are comfortable sharing, where they're comfortable sharing their mistakes, and if you are talking about your policies or if you are having discussions, then, make sure that they're designed to correct mistakes or contribute, as we were just talking about, to your culture. If you want a culture that is supposed to enforce different types of learning and growth, if you want a culture where you say, we trust you, but we're also going to hold you accountable, then follow through on writing policies that reflect that. Because if you have this, we'll call it an excessive reliance on policies that are designed to punish, all you're going to do is create a culture of fear and defensiveness. And those are the people that are going to quit. They're not going to see that you value them, and they're going to go someplace that does.
That
And
was pretty good mic drop too.
thanks.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say or would add to that is I think your point about is the policy really necessary, followed by the why are we doing this? If the why is because because people are abusing the policy, I would encourage you as the manager or as HR to ask how many people,
Mm, good one.
because it's usually a handful, if that. It's
Yep.
not typically the vast mass of people that are abusing the policy. So I would encourage you to start asking questions. Asking questions is a great way to push back without seeming like you're attacking somebody. So, if somebody says that, like, well, there's been, people are abusing this policy. How many people? It's a fair
Yeah.
question, right? If
Help
they
me
come back with,
understand the impact.
yes,
That's my
yes, help
favorite.
me
Help me
understand. Yes,
understand the impact.
yep. Yeah, and if they come back with, well, there's this person and this, okay, so three out of however many employees we have. And so we want to change, so just to make sure I'm understanding, we want to change this policy because of three people. Have we had a conversation with those people?
Mm,
Have we held them accountable?
no.
Maybe we should start there. Just saying. Yeah.
So good.
Okay, so thank you guys for sticking with us throughout this episode. I hope that we have encouraged you to think about things a little bit differently. And again, to sort of flip that script. So before we end and wrap up with any final thoughts, of course, we have to get back to our beverages of choice. So uh, I didn't ask this very important question at the beginning, Trisha, but what were you mixing the vodka with?
I was waiting for you to ask that because it's cracking me up. I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I am hydrating as
Oh,
well as dehydrating at the same time. So it's Gatorade.
nice.
Yep. Yep.
Just balancing it out.
Just trying to balance it out. Yeah. Yes, we have a lot of Gatorade going around this house trying to get the parents' electrolytes up, and my brother and I decided that, we would just use some too.
Smart. Very
Yeah,
smart.
I thought so. Yeah. Well, we need to keep our energy up for
That's
caregiving
right.
is exhausting.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
in the best way. Like I feel so privileged to be able to do this. Like so
Yeah.
privileged. But it is tiring,
Yeah. Yeah. For
especially
sure.
when it's like 90 degrees outside and you don't have AC.
Yeah. Yeah. But you
Yeah.
are in the lake with a really pretty view. So.
Yes, I can see two lighthouses if I just look to my left. So
Yeah,
yeah, kind of a little bit spoiled.
yeah, a little bit. Well, I hope that you and Tyler will be enjoying your vodkas on that beautiful little deck looking out at the water very shortly.
Yes, we will. I think he's already out there.
Probably. Yeah. Well, no surprise here, but I'm still enjoying this wine very much. Trying to see if I have any other tastes since I've been sipping on it for a while. Mm. It's just a very pleasant wine that would go very nicely with vegetarian dishes,
Mm.
fish, definitely like a summertime salad, or a salmon Caesar, or I, for those of you who may not know, I don't like to cook. My husband is a fantastic cook,
The
me not so
best.
much. But last night, I'm okay with vegetarian meals because I eat meat, but cooking it grosses me out. I don't like to cut it or trim it or blah, any of that stuff. So, but I will try vegetarian dishes. So I made this recipe. It was a za'atar spiced tofu with blistered tomatoes and roasted
Oh
chickpeas last night
my.
with a lemon tahini dressing, and I did the whole thing. It's New York Times cooking, and it was actually delicious. This wine would have gone very nicely with that particular dish. So
Okay, send me the recipe, number one.
I will.
Put a link to it in the show notes, number two.
Yes, I will.
And number three, I'm just had a brilliant idea, which is I'm coming to Cleveland and we're going to go down to Vino type. And anyone who's in the Cleveland area
Oh,
should come
yes.
join us and we will do a live episode from there.
Yeah, so we will give you the dates soon once they're solidified.
Oh,
And
yeah. I'm speaking as if I have no other commitments and you have
right,
no other
right.
commitments, but we're going
Right.
to get that
We
to
will,
happen
yes, we will
sometime.
get it done. And you might get some goodies, some swag if you join us. So, Cleveland
Yes.
peeps, be on the lookout for a date coming soon. So any final thoughts, Trish?
I just want to focus on what you have said a couple of times, which is it's all in the way you present it. We have a choice. We have a choice on how to present everything. And you can take anything and make it look horrific, or you can take anything and make it positive. I'm a big believer in reframing and showing people the positivity and really focusing on that. So I think that why not approach your policies that way? I can't believe we haven't been doing it all along. I'm super excited. So you actually really inspired me with a couple of things that you said today. So I'm very excited about that.
Aw, thanks. You as well inspired me. And just to piggyback on that, I would say, again, as a lawyer, there is this sort of impetus to focus on the negative and the
Yeah.
abuse that could happen. But the
It's the way we're
beauty of
trained.
getting right, the beauty of getting out of the legal field is that we don't have to do that anymore. We can look at things differently. And it really does change your perspective when you start to, or you stop to think of your employees as human beings that have lives and obligations, sometimes burdens, sometimes joyful things. All of those things are things that we should be able to deal with and still be able to work without feeling like we have to give up something in favor of the other. And the more that we can start as employers viewing things that way and forming our benefits and our policies in that way, the better it's going to be for all of us. Because as we've said in multiple episodes, the studies show happy employees results in better revenue, better bottom lines, better productivity, better retention, better
More
engagement,
innovation.
more innovation, all the good things for companies. So there's really no downside to taking a look at things and just seeing if you can, again, flip the script. And if you need some help, we're here for you. So,
Absolutely. One of our favorites.
yes, with that, again, we thank you for joining us. If you haven't yet subscribed, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Share us with friends if you find this helpful. And please, we have an email now, WHINE at monarchendeavorsllc.com. Send us wine recommendations, topic recommendations, whatever you want to tell us. Unless you're being really hurtful and mean, then maybe think about it twice. Anyway, cheers.
Oh, cheers.